The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound utilizes current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. Plus, they test multiple prototypes in the lab and in the field, and they build all their packs in the USA. Don't settle for a copycat. Get a Pound bag at pounddiscgolf.com. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Upshot Interview series, where once a week we will be doing a pure interview. We're not going to talk about other topics in disc golf. It's just going to be a sit down with players, business people, industry movers and shakers, interesting disc golfers, etc. here, and a chance to just talk in a little bit more detail and depth. Let us know if you have people that you think we should reach out to. Upshot@ultiworld.com. We're very pleased to be joined today by the CEO and founder of Dynamic Discs, Jeremy Rusco. Jeremy, it's been a big couple of weeks here for DD. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Charlie, Josh. Thank you guys so much for having me on this very special first episode. My goodness.
Numero uno.
Yeah, lots happening this off season, and I'm sure that we're going to be getting into it here very soon.
Yeah, so let's talk about first the player signings. I think it's fair to say that it's been like a little bit lean on the player sponsorship front for DD the past couple of seasons, particularly last year. And then you come out, you sign Ricky, Wysocki, and Kona Panis, and Mason Ford and Valerie Mondahano. You announced some enormous contracts for both Ricky and Kona. How has this been for the company as you get ready to go into 2022 with what really feels like a kind of a new marketing strategy?
Yeah, for us, it's a new chapter at Dynamic Discs. We used to have some of the highest profile players sponsored, let's say in 2016, 2017, Ricky Wysocki being on Latitude 64, Paige Pierce being there amongst many others. And we've taken a little bit of a backseat over the last couple of years. We've invested into growing our infrastructure, into growing our foundation at Dynamic Discs, growing our employees, growing our benefits, doing a lot of things to make sure that when the time was right for us to dip back into supporting the highest level professional players, that we'd be in a good spot. And wasn't sure it was going to happen in 2022, but Eric McCabe kept driving the conversations with some of these players to make sure that we could secure some of these top performing individuals. And we're just thrilled to been able to have the opportunity to present offers that grabbed their attention. And it's been an exciting off season for us. And we just can't wait for the 2022 disc golf season to kick off here in just a couple of weeks, actually.
So one thing that I think we've talked about a lot on the show is that your guys' branding has always been something that has been really excellent in terms of new players. I mean, Dynamic Discs always has the starter packs in the big retail stores. You have the YouTube series, the Physics of Flight, designated towards new players. And you've done a really good job, I think, attracting that area. What do you think is the role of professional sponsorships in addition to that branding? And how do you think that moves your market forward?
Good question. So one of the things, we used to be involved, we've had a lot of our focus towards PDGA players, PDGA events. We'd go to a lot of the big events. And one thing that we noticed and one thing that we saw, obviously we know the pandemic was great for disc golf in so many regards, all kinds of new players flocking to the sport, sharing disc golf with friends and family. And just, we saw a tremendous amount of growth over the last year and a half. And a lot of that growth we felt like didn't have hardly anything to do with, we'll say the professional disc golf scene. The start of the pandemic, for several months, professional players had nowhere to play. Of course, some of them stayed relevant on social media, but it was such an uncertain time for so many people that a lot of people just, stayed quiet. But we saw that we were growing in terms of starter sets that we're selling, entry-level disc golf equipment. We were blown away by the response, actually. And so I think there's a lot of different levels of players. There's the recreational player that knows nothing of Paul Macbeth, Ricky Wysocki, PDGA events, that there's real money involved in the sport. But we think that as people keep growing in their disc golf journey, as they venture from a starter set to maybe some intermediate level discs to, becoming a competitive disc golfer, they start to find out about Ricky Wysocki, professional disc golf. And we know that if we're not growing disc golf at the grassroots level and supporting it at the highest level, that we're not going to have an opportunity to be as relevant across all sides of the spectrum. And so that was part of our decision in terms of wanting to make sure that we got back to the highest level of disc golf sponsorships, and Ricky and Kona being at the top of our media marketing, advertising, and promotion, we think makes total sense. And we're looking forward to seeing what this partnership with them will equal over the coming years.
So one of the interesting things about DD is that you've got Paige Pierce coming back a couple of years ago, and then she leaves after only a few months and says in interviews that there actually wasn't a signed contract, that there was no paperwork signed. I don't think I need to ask you whether there's paperwork for these new contracts, but I guess I'm more interested to know what do these contracts look like? Because we have seen, and as you well know, with Ricky Wysocki coming over, having left midway through a contract with Innova, a lot of players leaving in the middle of contracts. So how do you think about how you keep players from doing that now? I mean, you're obviously investing a lot of money into both Wysocki and Panis. So is the structure of this contract such that they are going to truly be obligated to see that out? Or are there termination clauses or renegotiation periods or other opt-outs that would allow them to walk away after 2 years, let's say?
Yeah, so Ricky's contract is very lengthy. I believe it's 16 to 18 pages, something like that. And I think that really is important. When you get into this kind of money, this kind of support, it needs to be very clear, very spelled out for both parties. And we went back and forth to formulate that contract and put it together. And we both agreed on it and feel very good about it. And yes, if Ricky chooses to seek another sponsor before his 4-year commitment, his 4-year contract is seen through, he knows very specifically what that looks like for him, and we know what that looks like for us. So there's no, we feel like you need to, pay us back on this, or he feels like maybe we owe him more money, which obviously that wouldn't make any sense. But and the same thing goes for Kona. And the future of this absolutely is going to be more spelled out agreements, because it makes sense for all parties. I think with Paige Pierce, we had an agreement with her. We fully expected that she was going to see that through. We were willing to give more commitment to her, but at the end of the day, her heart was elsewhere, and we felt like it's better to support a player when they're ready to leave onto their next venture. But now, with all this being said, I think it's very important for both parties to understand, what a breakup might look like, and everything's changing for the better.
So just to ask a little bit further on that without getting too much into the specifics, it feels like, and you mentioned this, right? If a player wants to leave, keeping a disgruntled player does not seem, because these are marketing individuals, right? They're not, it's not an NFL contract. These are sponsorship deals. And so having a player that's disgruntled or doesn't necessarily want to be on the team doesn't serve for effective branding or advertising. And so it feels like there's a lot of power with the players, given that that's the case. Does the contract effectively then find a way to keep players in cases that they're unhappy? Or is there a way, how do you protect you as the manufacturer in these cases?
Josh, good question. And to be real honest, I'm not 100% sure what that would look like, other than the fact that Ricky today is absolutely thrilled with the commitment that we've got for him, and The same goes for Kona. And the important thing is that these are minimum guarantees for both Ricky and Kona. And so the way that I've worded it to Ricky and Kona is that ultimately we hope that we're paying them so much money come 2, 3, 4 years from now that we rip up the contract and it doesn't even matter, because we're very happy with what they're doing for us, because Kona discs, Ricky discs, Wysocki bomb branded stuff is selling and is certainly exceeding what we thought, what they thought. And so at the end of the day, their paychecks justify them not even caring about what the contract looks like. And I think that's the way it's going to go. And, a disgruntled player that's making, we'll say, $1 million+ in Ricky's eyes, I think even in 4 years from now, $1 million is substantial money. Going to be happy, but we think it's going to be more than that.
So it's really fascinating to kind of see how much the sport has been growing. And we've had you on, I think, sometime in last year, and we talked about just the explosive growth that the sport has seen. You've moved into a brand new warehouse that's 4 times the size of your old warehouse. How do you expect this flurry of moves to affect your sales? Because we've talked about it on the show that as much as the popular mindset amongst, passionate followers of professional disc golf and who, sort of the most committed players really follows kind of the trends of these sponsorship deals, that may not be the actual reality of just raw sales. And, Discraft has talked about how the year after they lost everybody to Prodigy, they actually did more sales the following year than they had the previous year. So how have you seen your sales affected? And do you think this is going to have a meaningful impact on the bottom line? Or, is the general growth of the sport already contributing to significant growth?
Charlie, that's a lot of questions there. You're going to have to refresh on some of those. But yes, so interestingly enough, these are investments for us at Dynamic. We certainly think that they're going to pay dividends, not only for Ricky, Kona, and our players, but for us. So the interesting piece that you mentioned about Discraft there, when they lost all their players and having a record year. So that's, interestingly enough for us, when we did have some of the top profile players with Ricky and Kona, we actually saw, that would have been 2016, 17, 2018. We actually saw that our sales were not going in the direction that we thought they should be going. Players were wanting more money. And I get that, but the sales didn't seem to be following them at that point in time. Now, fast forward to 2021, 2022, we had tremendous growth. The pandemic shed a lot of positive light on disc golf. We grew like crazy, 100% growth in 2020, 50% growth in 2021, which is incredible to be thinking about. We feel like we did that with, we certainly had great ambassadors, great promoters, great sponsored players, but they weren't showing up on lead card coverage and frequency, didn't have the social influence as, say, Ricky and Kona. One of the things that we felt like we've been seeing is that in disc golf specific stores, we started seeing that Dynamic, Latitude, Westside was not selling to what we'll say is the niche following that does follow professional disc golf. And so we started to see that those discs weren't stacking up to other competitors' discs that were selling in higher volumes. And so I'm certain that we're going to see more, especially the excitement that we saw with Ricky's announcement and Kona's announcement. But on Ricky's announcement, I'm very surprised that our website stayed functional. Thankfully, we did a platform upgrade here in the last several months, which was very important to keep I guess the the website alive and not crashing. But it's just so clear that things have changed so much in just like less than 2 years time. With Ricky's in-person signing in Kansas City, I could just see the excitement and the people that were there to get discs signed. And some of these people were taking their kids out of school. because they wanted to get a signature that bad, and we're just really like, oh my gosh, it's Ricky, and that's just so cool to see that disc golf professional players are starting to get to be at this level that is just not like just a couple of years ago. It's like, oh hey, there's Ricky, there's Paul, and they were on a little different level than that, but it's now it's getting to be so much harder to have an opportunity to come face to face with these players that we're seeing week in and week out on Disc Golf Network and post-produced coverage on YouTube.
Really quick, Josh, whose idea was the helicopter for the announcement videos?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Okay. So I got a ride in a Black Hawk helicopter about 2 years ago for a Kansas National Guard, like a training exercise and a way to reward influencers in the imported community. And I thought that was just really cool. And then obviously Sake Bomb, makes you think of things like that. And so I reached out to one of the decision makers that could see that through the chain, and so the hope that we were going to be able to get a Black Hawk helicopter as a Kansas National Guard training exercise. Unfortunately, the legal team and the marketing team shot that one down on the National Guard side, but we ended up working it out with a commercial helicopter, which I think turned out great. And ultimately, we just wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more unique, a little bit more dynamic. And Ricky and Kona both seemed to love the experience. And I'm super happy with the way that the video turned out with GK Pro producing those videos.
It was certainly memorable. Do you have handy, and are you willing to share kind of your opening weekend box office numbers? What was the impact financially of just that first weekend of Ricky and Kona? Can you give percentage, disc sale numbers, anything like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be happy to tell you that was our. As I said, I'm surprised the website didn't crash. That was a record day for us as an organization. We, in terms of dynamicdisc.com. Was really an exciting time, and Kona had an influence as well. And we were, I know that one of the discs that we put online for her, we thought we had more than we needed, and those sold out as well. And so it definitely speaks to the influence that they have. More importantly than that is making sure that it's not just those sales through dynamicdisc.com. It's selling those through our wholesale and distribution channels to retail stores, so that retail stores can have that, sort of impact as well, because it's definitely clear that people want to support their favorite player or players. And we think that Ricky and Kona obviously have a pretty big influence.
When you look at the landscape now, what makes you confident to spend the big dollars on the big free agents, quote unquote, where, maybe you weren't willing to because of the sales trends from a few years ago? Is it just that things have changed in the last 2 years with the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a tremendous amount of growth, as I just talked about earlier, and we knew that we wanted to get back to supporting and sponsoring players at the highest level. We just didn't know whether that was going to be in 2022, 23, 24, 25. And, I definitely could sense from some people internally and externally that we need that. We want that. And it was an immediate injection of energy throughout all of Dynamic for both Kona and Ricky on the announcement days at 10 o'clock on those announcement videos. We had our entire staff come into our lobby area, played the video, welcomed Kona, welcomed Ricky to the Dynamic family. And you could just sense from almost everybody that this is, we're working towards all growing together, all supporting each other. And it was a special moment for us. And I know that over the coming years, as we continue to have more players on lead card and chase card, footage, live Disc Golf Network coverage, we're going to have that playing throughout the Dynamic warehouse, headquarters, throughout, Dynamic Discs when you walk into the store, as well as our partner stores. And it's, you better believe we're going to be cheering for our players.
I have one last little contract question. Did you have to pay a buyout or anything like that to Innova to sign Ricky?
Yeah, so those details are still getting worked out with Ricky and Ricky's lawyer and Innova's lawyer, and I guess you could say I'm expecting that those discussions are going to get finalized soon, and both parties are going to be happy to whatever extent you can be happy. I'm sure that there's frustrations on both sides, and I think the lesson learned from all of us on this is to just make it where there's clear, termination clause. If you leave your contract, here's what it looks like, and it's certainly going to cost money. You better believe that Ricky wants to leave Dynamic. All that Bitcoin's coming right back, and some. But for real, I think the player needs the expectation that, hey, if I want to entertain another offer, I know right up front that it's going to cost this, and this. And on our end, we're making big investments to make sure that we can continue to promote through our media marketing advertising. And so we've added not only a graphic designer that started last week, we've got another media and content creator coming to start a Dynamic that's moving in from Mexico, which I think is fantastic. Adding more of a diverse work employee base at Dynamic Discs, and he starts in a couple weeks. And so we got a lot of good things happening, and that's we're again just really looking forward to the 2022 season.
So I've got one last question as well on the sponsorship side. Were you or people at DD frustrated by the leaks of the Ricky news? Because by the time that announcement came, I mean, it was all but common knowledge that Ricky was there, and even contract details were pretty well known, at least from what I saw on Twitter and Reddit. Was that something that was frustrating, or not so much of a problem because it got the buzz around you even a month early?
Yeah, so we all over the board on that one, Josh. I mean, it's in most regards. I mean, and I was talking with Ricky and Ari about some of those leaks as well in McCabe, and we were like, I know that Ricky and Ari were more frustrated than maybe what we were, and all I could come back and say was, hey, things are getting talked about, and it's important to know that nobody really knows what's real and not real. And for every, confirmed statement, you could see that there was a handful of people that were like, no, not a chance, and so the speculation and the hype to me was like, I think I'd probably pay money to do something like that again, so I felt like it was positive. There were certainly some frustrations, and it felt like there was maybe a little more specific details than what should have been out there. But that being said, at the end of the day, I think it was all positive news. And here we are today. It's official that Ricky Wysocki is making $1 million+ with Dynamic, and is very excited about the partnership that we've established.
Jeremy, do you have 5 or 6 burner Reddit accounts that you were just tweeting, yes, he is, no, he isn't, just keeping the hype going?
No, I actually tried to log into Reddit or whatever, and I think I have a login, but I don't even know how to get there.
That's what you would say if you had burner accounts. So, along with, look, DD's been all the talk the last week, and that comes along with more scrutiny. There have been some posts about your director of HR, Corey Wiltz, who was formerly a principal at a middle school, who ended up getting let go from that job and having a job offer rescinded from another school because of an incident where a student said on the school bus that she was a lesbian, and there was punishment from the bus driver, and then that was backed up by Wiltz, the principal, and there's a ton of reporting on this from various news outlets in Kansas. Folks have been wondering why Dynamic Discs is hiring somebody, particularly in the HR department, that is, that had an incident where the ACLU was threatening to sue over discrimination because this student was being punished for saying she was a lesbian. So how do you respond to that, with Corey Wiltz as your HR director?
Yeah, so we stand behind our decision with hiring Corey. We absolutely looked into the incident. We did get an influx of questions, comments, concerns revolving around that, and we have put out a response to that, or a statement to that, to address that. I can promise you that our workforce is more diverse than it's ever been, including adding staff from the LGBTQ plus community. And again, I'll say it that at Dynamic, we're super transparent. We're good, honest people, and we stand behind our decision with hiring Corey. And I think that if anytime you look inside of our organization, you will embrace the fact that we are a great organization. We have great employees, great staff, and Corey is absolutely one of those. And if you want to get our response from that, just shoot us a message on our chat, or shoot us an email on sales@dynamicdisc.com, and we'll send that over to you, and you can get some clarification, hopefully, on the issue. But we definitely understand that not everybody's going to be satisfied with the response that we have.
So Worlds is coming to Emporia this year. And, one thing that Charlie and I have talked about in a lot of marketing is the idea that, there are lots of ways through the marketing that manufacturers can reach the community. What do you think the role is with manufacturers and sponsors in terms of competitions like Worlds? I mean, you guys play a very big role in both the Dynamic Discs Open and Worlds. What do you feel like that brings both to the community as well as to Dynamic Discs and being such a big part of that tournament?
Yeah, we absolutely love being a part of our community. And as I look back over the last 15 years of disc golf growth in Emporia, it's definitely special to see. I'd save maybe another discussion on growing disc golf in Emporia for a future podcast. But the 2022 Professional World Championships in Emporia, as I see it, is the most important event that our community has ever held. And the reason I feel so strongly about that is because with Emporia being centrally located and the amount of disc golf courses that we have in Emporia, as well as being named from UDisc, the number one small town disc golf city. And I don't know if that was the world or in the United States. We've got a lot of great things going for disc golf. And so people are going to want to come to Emporia because disc golfers, obviously, because they watch the World Championships on Disc Golf Network, on YouTube. I can almost guarantee you that we're going to see it on ESPN, CBS, one of those news outlets. And people come into the community. They usually stay for a couple days. They spend money at Dynamic Discs. They spend money at the local restaurants. They spend money at the gas station. They spend money by staying in the hotels. They shop the other retail stores in town. They truly make a tremendous economic impact for our community. And so that's why our community has embraced disc golf the way that it has. And I'm confident that that's only going to be amplified by this year's World Championships.
As you look ahead to the next 10 years, where do you see disc golf going, and where do you see Dynamic Discs going after this boom we've had amidst the pandemic?
Well, it's clear the only thing that's happening for disc golf is that it keeps going up and it keeps growing. I think the pandemic, we grew 4, 5, 6 years. Disc golf itself grew 4, 5, 6 years in the matter of a year and a half. The only thing that we've known at Dynamic is growth. I thought we were moving into our new headquarters, our new warehouse. As was mentioned earlier, 4 times the size of our previous warehouse. I thought we were moving into that and we were going to be in a good position for years. We've already outgrown the space.
Wow.
Not only in terms of our office space, but also in terms of our actual warehouse space. So I'm sure we're going to have to figure something out there before too long in terms of being able to keep up. But I think it's really the most exciting time in the sport that there's ever been in the sport. We've got player contracts that we could I don't think most of these players ever would have dreamed 10 years ago that there would be this amount of players making the amount of money that, is being made now. Obviously, those are just going to keep going up with Ricky being the second player to be guaranteed $1 million a year. I don't think it'll be but just a couple more years until there's a handful or more of those player agreements. And I think that's really positive for the future younger generation, because I think that one of the things that we heard with, in Ricky's story is, and him talking about how his father was maybe not as supportive of disc golf as he had hoped he was. Well, that was because kind of the story was you can be making, pretty much a very nominal amount of money and just scraping by. Well, Ricky's more than scraping by. Paul McBeth, more than scraping by. A lot of players are more than scraping by right now and very successful, making more money than probably a lot of their friends or almost all their friends at this point, which is pretty incredible to think about. By playing disc golf, being an influencer, promoting the sport, that people are really making life-changing amounts of money. And so there's certainly going to be more of those deals. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as ESPN, CBS want to start getting more involved with covering disc golf, because the broadcast value now is just tremendous. Disc Golf Network, how you can watch disc golf coverage now is not, and it wasn't but a couple of years ago where it was have 4 players tee off and go to commercials. And and now, you got your 4 players teeing off, and then you're going to the next 4 players, or you're going to this player that, just made an incredible shot. And the storylines are just incredible. The production value is tremendous, and it really is becoming enjoyable for not only disc golf fans and enthusiasts to watch, but for moms and dads and grandmas and really all walks of life, which is obviously what I think is going to continue to get more people involved with playing disc golf, because it's so accessible. It's for all walks of life. It's great. It's a great hobby. It's a great sport. It's a great career. And I'm really excited to see where the sport goes over the coming decade. And it's hard to imagine where it's going to go, because we know one thing, it's going to go up. There's going to be more players, but what are going to be the big earth, breaking moves that happen over the coming years, including, does Nike get involved? Does Adidas get involved? Does, somebody buy something that you would never expect? And it makes all this stuff change drastically.
Are you nervous about that or excited about that prospect?
I think I'm excited about it. I've given plenty of thought. What if Nike comes in and wants to be, the big player in disc golf, or another big, Under Armour? Who knows who might want to get involved? And of course, none of us know what exactly that'll look like, but I can guarantee it's going to bring more positive light to disc golf. It's going to bring more attention to disc golf. And so what I think that means is that more people get involved with disc golf. And so obviously, as the sport continues to grow, I think we're all seeing that that's good for everybody involved in disc golf. And for that reason, I'm excited. And I hope that, that happens sooner than any of us probably could imagine that it will happen. And it might not ever happen.
So, Jeremy, here on the Upshot, we're a big fan of over-unders. And that's kind of our go-to game. So a couple, I would say, looks like about a month ago, we talked about some of these milestones. And I said that a sporting goods company like Nike or Adidas would become, a title sponsor for a player, their primary sponsor by 2027. Do you want to play an over-under? Do you think that's a little too late? Or do you think I'm shooting a little early?
I think 2027. I'll go spot on with you on that one.
Okay.
Over under equal.
Yeah, that's right. We'll put it down. We're coming back to you when this is announced.
Yeah. Definitely do that. And pickleball, Adidas. I think I saw like a couple weeks ago, just starting to get involved with pickleball. Obviously, pickleball and disc golf have a lot of similarities in terms of growth, being an outdoor recreational activity. And so I got to imagine that at some of these board meetings at some of these bigger companies, they got to be thinking, what do we latch on to next? And just, if you really think about all the positives that disc golf bring, almost seems silly that some of these companies aren't embracing it and getting on board with it.
All right. I have kind of a funny little question here before we wrap up. We were on our subscriber bonus segment last week. We were talking about the cost of producing a disc and like what the profit margin is. So, let's say you sell a Tour Series disc for $25 and the player gets $4 or $5 and the wholesale, the retail partner is making a few dollars because they're buying it at wholesale prices. And, the Dynamic Discs is making X. What is the profit margin on a disc? How much does it cost to make a disc? I don't expect you to give me like the exact down to the cents answer here, but is it a couple bucks to make a disc? Is it more than we think? Is it less than we think?
Well, I might not be the best person to answer this question because we don't technically manufacture any of our discs. We've got our manufacturing partner, Latitude 64, so I can certainly tell you how much we pay. I can tell you what our landed cost is. Ultimately, my gut sense on it is that, a disc is, you obviously got your mold cost, which, I think is $10,000 to $20,000. That being said, I know that there's, depending on how you do it, it's certainly going to be a lot more. So if you think you're only going to make 10,000 discs, there's $1 a disc right there just for the mold. Hopefully you're going to make more than 10,000 discs, but a lot of companies, 10,000. I know it wasn't too long ago where us hitting 10,000 discs was, that might be a couple of years for some molds. I think you got $1 in plastic at the most. Plastic prices have increased, but then on top of that, you got your injection molding machines, lots of money there. You got all your overhead costs, you got your employee costs. So, I'm happy with the prices that we get from Latitude 64, where we can make it work. This has been a really crazy time for, I think, any business. All the inflation that's going on, all the uncertainties that's going on, have certainly presented some of their own challenges, but some of those are being offset, at least for us, in terms of our volumes are going up substantially and disc golf is growing. So we're able to offset some of those cost increases. And so, for discussion purposes here, let's just say that a $6, if a disc costs us $6, we want to make some margin on it. We're not going to sell it for $10, but for ease of math, let's say we sell it for $10. The retailer obviously then wants to make a keystone margin, and so the end retail there is then $19.99 or give or take $1. And so that's kind of the pricing breakdown. Obviously, the direct manufacturers know those numbers to whatever extent they can know them. I would say it's a pretty complex formula. And the one thing that is certain there too is that disc prices are going up. And it really is kind of interesting. We've had pricing discussions for years. And it never felt like we could sell for more. We were always like, the day that a $20 disc becomes the normal is, that's kind of scary. It's like, let's sell at $12.99 a premium disc where that's like 2 golf balls. And a disc lasts for, as long as you don't lose it, a disc lasts for a long, long time. And now definitely we're to that point where we're at $19.99 to $24.99 seems to be about the standard cost of a premium disc. And I think that's actually to support disc golf in the sense that it needs to be supported full circle, whether that's paying players like Ricky Wysocki a guaranteed $1 million a year, whether that's supporting disc golf tournaments, whether that's growing disc golf at the grassroots level, whether that's providing more employee benefits, higher compensation, throughout our organization. All those things are good. And that's where continuing to see disc golf go in the direction that it's going, I think, is a very positive thing.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Jeremy, thank you so much for stopping by and being our first guest here on the Upshot Interview series.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Keep up all the great work over there. Thanks for what you're doing to help grow disc golf.
Appreciate it. CEO of Dynamic Disc, Jeremy Rusco, with us here on the Upshot. We'll talk to you tomorrow.